He woke up with a bad headache and even worse breath, the type that stank up the inside of an army tank and made soldiers curse the high heavens. His prickly tongue enjoyed feeling all the holes in his damaged teeth. Felix had a fascinating yet pointless night with the new co-worker from Montana. There wasn't much about Montana, but there was something about Harlow, something that Felix couldn't get out of his head. He tried and tried, but it was inevitably troubling. The two-word phrases kept coming to him like an improv comic. See, Harlow was new in town, friendless, moneyless, and most importantly, partnerless. Felix wasn't well sought after like some of his other colleagues, Iggy or Pete. His car was almost as beat up as his mug was, and he was as boring as a rock with no friends. It was a perfect opportunity for Felix to prove himself lovable, even for a night or two. The constant shift from being confident, bordering cockiness to sheer nihilism was as frustrating as Felix could get, and Felix sure as hell frustrated his close friends. It seemed as if he had been blessed with a slightly more favorable gene pool. Then he would have the whole world at his cracked doorsteps. At his best moments, Felix was a suave, charming devil with no obstacles in his way. But in the dark ages of his personality, he struggled to see himself as an equal to anyone. His downfall was living in his own shallow, materialistic existence away from valor and dignity. His phone read, "Geez, you don't quit. I hope you got home okay, bucko." Sent at 1:22 a.m. Harlow's contact picture was a blurry image that Felix found on Facebook. He never added her, but kept looking at her profile for some kind of clues. All he found was a heap of meme pages and a few flash game invites that one paid attention to. Felix was 4 minutes late to Horace's diner, which competed with his 7-minute average. The manager, Paul, was tied up yelling at the cooks for burning 2 omelets within the first hour of the shift, so he didn't notice Felix strutting on by. Pete was trying to wake up the narcoleptic Mr. Swanson by poking him with his cane. It was a weekly routine that the delinquent teenagers enjoyed recording during their second-period history class. Iggy had the cash register jam every 40 minutes or so, but couldn't use the sledgehammer during the morning or lunch shifts. Horace's didn't win the last lawsuit sparked from the fatal heart attack of sweet old Mrs. Baker. God rest her terrified soul. Felix hated Harlow's days off. He dubbed them uninspiring and dull. All he did was daydream scenarios of her jumping into rich men's red Corvettes and driving endlessly into the Pacific Coast Highway while she fed them grapes. The daydream would only end in a devastating yet satisfying crash about half the time. Harlow always survived, but the rich men usually burned into ashes of cash. It was halfway through his shift, and Felix's fingers were quivering over his phone. He didn't know if he should text her back or continue longing for his lunch break. The pressure was tensing up his lower back. Right before it broke into spasm, Paul, the manager, came storming into the kitchen with a pair of scissors. "Bad news, Felix. Emil didn't show today. You're on bathroom duty." Felix's expression looked despising but accepting, and Paul continued to check on the rest of the team down the row. Felix looked for some disinfecting spray to exercise the janitorial mop. Everyone knew about Emil's dirty restroom habits. The stains on the tile told a story worthy of Lonely Man's Hustler magazine fame. The bathroom was surprisingly clean for a middle-of-the-day check-in. It looks like the Shitbird brothers didn't come by to ravage their territory this morning. The Lysol triggered an image of Harlow's hair flapping in Felix's face. A tantalizing touch made the pre-written text long for a click on the send button. The common fear of rejection usually brings up a notion of, it's best not to even try, but that whiff of lemon-induced bleach rattled the heart of a lonely substitute janitor. To his surprise, Harlow responded instantly. It was something he was never used to, but it felt amazing. "I thought you died, fellers. You drank those 2 shots so quickly, sent at 2:33 p.m. The remaining hour or so of a shift was jetting on by, and of course it was because Felix was on top of the world. It was easy for him to fall in love, but it felt near impossible to get the same attention back from a love interest. 4 p.m. meant it was time for Felix to head back to his apartment, but he was in LA land with Montana's greatest gem of the 21st century, so he stayed in his bucket of a Mazda, texting away. Emoji here, flirty invitation there. He felt as if he was the Jose Canseco of Motorola, knocking them out of the park and back. The drive back felt like an elevator ride to the heavens, passing through the golden gates into the waterfalls of the Amazon. A honk interrupted Felix's infantile euphoria. Swerving to the beat of Freak-a-Leak didn't sit well with his fellow vehicle-operating citizens. He was just in his own zone, and no one could stop him, not even rich men in red Corvettes. The texting was still going strong. Smiley emojis evolved into hearts. Felix knew the next stage of evolution consisted of eggplants and water droplets, but he knew to keep his cool for the time being. That risk of jumping the gun had failed countless times before, even in times of utmost confidence. If only he could castrate himself for a cooling-off period, but that's not how horniness worked. It had been a long, genital grating 5 years since his last lay, a desperate 4 a.m. call to the classifieds for a 10-minute release of $50 hard-earned dollars. He felt it was pathetic but justifiable, but never wanted to do it again. He had gotten close since then, but the moments had gotten to his head with unfortunate ruin. The Horace Diner Christmas Delight night concluded with an embarrassing escapade. Debbie from accounting was going on her 8th shot of Fireball and just got out of a 4-year engagement. Felix had set his beady eyes on her since the first toast of that blurry night, noticing her smeared mascara and constant trips to the ladies' room. She had been trying with almost every employee, but no one wanted to dip their junk in company ink. Debbie was sloppy with chunks of vomit all over her golden blouse. The smell of waffles and cinnamon usually stirred up cravings. Now they were tied to desperate sex with a wounded gazelle. Felix and Debbie had snuck out of the festivities to meet the back of her Chevy Tahoe. Her back instantly hit her leather seats, begging Felix to whip it all out and fill her up. Those words got him very excited, to the point where it triggered a very unfortunate bodily release that confused Debbie. "Wait! You didn't fucking A, you klutz!" As if Felix wasn't already emasculated as it was, that was the same week the rumors about his purple pigmented testes spread through Horace's management. Dubbing him the Purple Pounder, there was even a poem contest to come up with the best alliterated pea poem to describe Felix's pecker pals to perfection. Debbie slurred her words. "They aren't even purple. More pink, if anything." Felix gave up on his redemption nut and stormed out of the Tahoe, slamming his door, almost breaking the handle. Debbie's drunken grumbles faded in the back of his mind as he drove down the highway past the legal limit. Harlow was a blessing. Whether or not Felix was going to end up as a victor in this case did not matter. She was a distraction, an opportunity for him to feel new again. The new car smell came back to Felix's hot rod. It just needed a new place to park and flourish. The two set up a date at the aquarium. Felix noticed Harlow's fascination with squids, which in turn fascinated Felix. Was it the ink? Tentacles? Suction cups? Why not an octopus? Harlow didn't provide a specific reason besides stating that "they are neat is all." The local squid exhibit had been on Harlow's to-do list since she was in middle school. For some reason, it was known across the country and got spread through janky midnight advertisements that people laughed at on YouTube. The aquarium was empty that weekend, no surprises there, but Harlow's enthusiasm filled the air with thought bubbles. She knew her turtle, whale, seagull, and of course, squid facts. Felix's forced attention turned into legitimate interest the way Harlow spoke about sea life. "The minke whale lives up to about 50 years. Seagulls can drink salt water. I don't like vampire squids much." Felix was trying to convince Harlow to go back to school to finish her marine biology courses, but she was reluctant to give it another whirl. "They take the passion out of the sea. It turns gray after all the love is gone." She loved the sea, but hated being tested about it. Knowledge flows like water. It doesn't end with a score. As corny as it sounded to Felix, it sure excited him in more ways than one. He had to hide the bulging outline from his jeans, which was simple enough with Harlow gazing through the exhibits without a slight idea. On the way through the Hall of Mollusks, Harlow shrieked and ran to a glass case of oysters. "Do you see that one? It's a Coffin Bay king oyster." Harlow looked deep into Felix's eyes with a glaze of excitement. Her lips were moist as she whispered, "I've been waiting years to see these. They are the rarest oysters in the country." Felix examined them with curiosity and asked what made them so rare. She didn't answer right away, frozen with a sort of glow that came over children with toys in their hands. "Oysters," oysters turn me on. Harlow held the back of Felix's head as if her tongue was scooping out the protein. The locking of lips and tongues turned into groping and rubbing. The two took each other in front of petrified oysters and clams. The nearby crustaceans were lucky enough to miss the ordeal. Felix had Harlow's breasts against the glass as he pounded her into oblivion. At this exact moment, he had thanked himself for his patience, which had paid off in the long run. They ended up in each other's arms, leaning against the rusted railing, face deep neck to neck, panting heavily. Felix thought he would, at the very least, get a kiss at the squid exhibit, being her favorite and all. Distant footsteps interrupted the post-sex cuddling, and the two jumped into their clothes, missing buttons. Harlow couldn't help but notice the big, stupid grin on Felix's face. "You come, boy, it's just sex, silly. Don't spoil it." Felix stopped in his tracks, dumbfounded by the comment, but his grin didn't disappear. He peered past an empty concession stand to see the exhibit of squids sink with the ink. Harlow whisked through the metal bars on her way to melt in front of the glorious yet slimy exhibit of decapodiforms. The rest of the aquarium was somewhat dilapidated, but this part seemed to be well funded. It was the only exhibit holding the place together, from the 16 widescreen panels playing an educational video on inking, the defense mechanism of the sea, to the golden statue of a giant squid and mini theater with 4 different squid-based horror films from Italy. Harlow was in hog-no in squid heaven. Tears of joy made her makeup resemble ink, smearing her round face while she ran back and forth through the area like it was an enchanted maze. Truly, a candy store experience for Harlow. Felix merely examined her every step along the way. "Over here! They have the firefly squid!" All Felix did was replay the moments that preceded the squid escapades in his mind with vigorous fervor. He wanted to thank the ambassador of oysters and kneel before the Oyster King. Harlow was as ecstatic during the car ride as she was during the trip to the aquarium bathroom. Felix showered her with squid-stuffed animals, glittery keychains, and an amateur encyclopedia of squids made by the aquarium itself. Felix's eyes switched from being on the road to Harlow's sweet lips moving, but his attention was still with the daydreams from the oystercapade. "Right, Feliz? Right?" She caught him in a daze. He nervously smiled and asked her to repeat herself. More of the same yapping resumed, so it was back to daydreaming for him. Her place was a couple blocks down, and it was time for Felix to let his aquarium queen go for the night. Harlow lived alone, but mentioned that she was feeling sleepy. Felix wanted to invite himself in, but thought it was too soon. "Next time, Fifi. I don't want to knock out on you's an amazing day." He was able to get a kiss from her, but it felt more like stealing a kiss from her. It was a bit off. Felix usually got needy after he had sex with someone. The last moment of the date had him scratching his head for the rest of the night. The texts between the two grew shorter. Harlow answered less enthusiastically than before, and Felix's hands went back to a sweaty mess. His nightmare of a one-hit wonder was becoming a dreaded reality in a blink of an eye. Of course, this was his desperation speaking, and things were not as bad as he thought. The despair monster was a magnet for the negative ions, reaping havoc on his confidence. The work week was brutal. Pigeons shat all over the cars with handicapped parking. The owners of these cars were already used to complaining to Paul, the manager. Acts of God or the devil were not covered under the insurance policy. Everyone's mood was as shitty as the hoods of these cars. It seemed to have been rubbed off throughout Horace's. An elderly couple dragged their legs over to Iggy behind the cash register, cursing down at the bloody soles of his shoes. They demanded a refund for their burnt eggs and stale toast. Iggy reached at the lower part of the shelf behind the register to grab a Halloween devil mask he saved and lunged towards the couple, screaming, "Do thy fucking bidding, swine!" The man held his chest and scurried towards the exit, holding his neck, while the woman held onto her cane as if it were a medieval mace. "The senator will shut this travesty of an eatery up. I swear it on Mary." Felix walked by, repeating, "travesty of an eatery," like it was reminiscent of an early nursery rhyme. He noticed Harlow attending to young lovers leaning on each other in a booth with a torn-out tapestry. The two were holding hands and making kissy faces in front of Harlow. She wanted them to get it over with and order their damn hash browns with cheese already. Felix tried noticing if there was any type of excitement behind Harlow's eyes when staring at the young, dumb couple to see if she could relate. Her deepening disgust extended a sharp dagger into his psyche. If she felt the same way he did about her, then there would be a different palette of emotions resting on her pudgy face. When the couple was able to order something past coffee, Harlow strolled by Felix, who was standing in the middle of the diner as if it was the center of the universe. His Milky Way wasn't necessarily ignoring him. He was too frightened to approach her. Back to square one with much more on the table, he thought, a dastardly design for an infatuation. The only hope left was fighting destiny. Would it fight back, or would it give the love lug a chance? As she walked to her miniature locker, Felix pretended to hit the mop over in her direction, startling her. She couldn't ignore him now. G-clum butt, trying to kill me? Those rosy cheeks made her eyes look as sparkly as the time she glanced back at him going doggy by the oysters. It took his breath and made him speechless. You okay, Licks? Puss got your tongue? Yeah. Sorry I didn't see you there. Good thing the mop did. Ha. How you been? I hadn't heard from you. She was caught off guard by the lonely tone in Felix's muffled voice, like a sign of weakness to ultimately dismantle. Oh, yeah, work's been bad, haven't you seen? We'll talk tonight. With a wink, she walked off and turned slowly, chuckling at Iggy's antics. If Felix wasn't puzzled before, he sure as hell was now. He needed a way to figure things out further for his stubborn ass. Stubborn equals sign determined to fail. Something besides the 3-week-old cheese near the freezer smelled funny. There was a dead rat of suspicion under his glorious walkway to eternal bliss. The rest of the shift became a mental tug of war, back and forth with hope and then despair. Despair had a team of bodybuilding monsters with broken heart tattoos, pulling Felix into the abyss of loveless souls. The only notifications on his phone were to log into his virtual poker account to claim free extravagant chips. No Harlow, no Harmony. It was a surprise for him to see that 5:57 p.m. wasn't followed by an infinity sign for his timesheet. The ride home followed a path of disgruntled worker bees chanting beeps and horns at the red lights. A vagrant couple started a watermelon fight on the boulevard. There was little respect for the crossing guard and cleanup crew that encountered the slimy ordeal. Half a mile away was another scene of calamity, a businessman with a golf club ready to bust the windows of an Oriental family's silver van after cutting him off on the highway. His black Benz AMG pulled up in front of the car to stop at mid-traffic as the family wailed on. The patriarch apologized profusely, but Mr. Three-Piece Suit was relentless on the windshield, leaving cantaloupe-sized cracks for the family to witness in horror. Not even this hilariously tragic sight made Felix smile in the least. His mind was still in orbit and waiting for any sort of vital sign Harlow threw his way. A call, a text, an outdated Facebook poke. No. All he got was a wink engraved on his romantical tombstone. The walk up his stairs to apartment 345 was followed by a promising vibration in his pant pocket. A text message from Harlow. Feethead, you never texted me like you said. The idiotic giddiness took over. Small victories turned him into Emperor Felicitas, conquering with brevity. I said that? Of course I did. What's new? My feet are killing me. Paul is having me work double shifts because of St. Patty's. Wow, what a dick. Hey, I need the hours. Rent's going up and I want to subscribe to Nat Geo. There's this upcoming algae edition that is getting word for its picks and I need it. Oh, baby, I get it. I'll buy it for you. Felix instantly regretted his last text. The clinginess seemed damaging and off-putting. He broke a first straw that needed more than glue to fix. There was an enduring 20 minutes before she replied. Nah, I'm okay. I like buying my own stuff, but thank you. Phew. That was a great sign. A heart symbol. He didn't totally fudge it up. The main doubt came from her not wanting him to buy her something again. She must feel guilty about leading me on and doesn't want me to pay more for her time. More cancerous doubt and paranoia. Felix needed a breather. This is what made sex, infatuation, and love all seem like it wasn't worth the trouble. But then again, being neutral in life was safe, but it was also so fucking boring. Fuck this. All good. So when are you free? I'm going to take you to a new spot I found on Yelp. Push came to shove, and he was sick of waiting. It's either now or never. Living with that lingering what if was worse than failing. She didn't lag this time. I don't really know. Paul's not letting up with these shifts, but I'll let you know. Yeah, I know what that means. Her next reply seemed to have sensed Felix's frustration, and a type of compromise came into play. Well, I'll tell you what. That St. Patty's work after party sounds fun. Take me to that. Felix felt little assurance from an otherwise grand opportunity. It was now and never. Awesome. What are you going to wear? Delete. Awesome, I'll bring that vodka you like. Okay, but you're DD, Mr. Hotshot. I'm bringing her back here. Faith, the apartment manager, will have to deal with another drunken night of laughter if it kills her. Felix never spoke to his parents, but he occasionally messaged his wealthy aunt when he needed a woman's advice. She phoned him as soon as she opened his email. You need to start calling me when you don't need my wisdom. I know, but at least I call you. I should call you when the neighbor's alligator gets in the septic tank again. Fair enough. You got yourself another girlfriend now. Finishing too early? Tabitha, why is it always me coming too soon? I just remember your last mess. They had that silly nickname for you. It's normal. My second husband said I had an oven down there and never lasted more than 12 strokes. Okay. I don't need to visualize how my cousins were conceived. Oh, honey, you can safely bet none of the useless deadbeats you've met planted their seeds in me. Felix was a centimeter away from throwing in the towel for getting advice. The cringing effect of his aunt's lack of embarrassment reveled through the speaker of the phone. Honey, I am kidding. What's the big dilemma with your new soulmate? I don't know about being a soulmate, but I'm glazed with her beauty. You hump everything that comes your way. You need to siphon out the unworthy trash. A deep sigh vibrated on the phone line. You know, you don't have to be so critical. She isn't trash. I only say that because half these skeezers don't give my handsome, competent nephew the proper time of day. Death to... Well, she's not. She's not like them. She's sweet, beautiful, and smart. If she's so grand and dear, then why can't you handle it yourself? Life is complicated in this day and age. I need to ensure it through other means, like asking you for some pointers. Nothing mind-altering. If you say so, you're worse than when your father came to me about your sweet mother. I should have warned her instead of helping him. The silence prompted Aunt Tabitha to get on with her advice. You need to make her feel like you're the challenge, not the other way around. You ever see those cats that throw mice in the air and let them live longer than they should? Don't be the mouse, Felix. Women hate mice. For some odd reason, this far-fetched analogy hit Felix like a bag of uncircumcised dicks. He knew he was the mouse, and she was in control of every tag whale, every bite of cheese, and every stuttering polite gesture that came to breath. The rest of the conversation ended up being irrelevant and the opposite of thought-provoking. The gift of Harlow's attention wasn't the type of attention you begged for. You just needed to step away for 5 minutes and take a breather. If she wanted him, it would come out naturally. If she didn't, then it was time to step away for good. The night of the St. Patty's Day after party came quicker than he imagined. Felix found a green vest at the local Goodwill that was not too tacky but not very spiffy either. He knew it would spark a convo or two from Horace's own thrift guru and Peril, quite literally being the last person that he wanted to impress, but maybe Harlow would compliment the snappy-dressed Felix and give him a peck on the cheek, polite gesture that came to breath. The rest of the conversation ended up being irrelevant and the opposite of thought-provoking. The gift of Harlow's attention wasn't the type of attention you begged for. You just needed to step away for 5 minutes and take a breather. If she wanted him, it would come out naturally. If she didn't, then it was time to step away for good. The night of the St. Patty's Day after party came quicker than he imagined. Felix found a green vest at the local Goodwill that was not too tacky but not very spiffy either. He knew it would spark a convo or two from Horace's own thrift guru and Peril, quite literally being the last person that he wanted to impress, but maybe Harlow would compliment the snappy-dressed Felix and give him a peck on the cheek. The workday was surprisingly drama-free, and the entire staff couldn't wait to lock the doors, shut the curtains, open the bottles, and kick out the senior citizens. The town all knew of the after-party, but no one wanted to pay the $200 ticket to attend. Half of those proceeds went to bribe Paul, the manager, who needed to bribe his girlfriend from the health department so the shindig can be kept under wraps. The process was long, but it worked every year. Harlow loved the idea of a drunken stupor with her new work family. As soon as the clock hit 8 p.m., Iggy and Pete ran to the emergency shutdown switch to close Horace's instantaneously. The alarms were shut off, but Paul, the manager, yelled at the two because the shutdowns end up in the yearly report. "That's coming out of your tips, you dinks." The two giggled, running around with some $12 champagne, spraying it all over the uncleaned booths. The lights went out and the music on. The middle hardwood floors cleared and became an instant dance floor for Horace's Diner's St. Patty's Day after-party showdown. Felix whipped out the vodka from his locker that he promised Harlow. He looked for her, but did not find her right away. A couple of the waitresses went to the bathroom to change into their casual outfits. The desperate singles of the town that funneled the $200 to attend the party were let in through the back entrance. One of the robust single mothers had a purple lace top that barely held her enormous fake breasts. She ran in with her chest jiggling to the funky music Pete played through the diner's wide speaker. A certain process of mitosis occurred within the first 10 minutes of partying. The line for the women's restroom was long. Everyone had a drink in hand, and Paul, the manager, was already going up to every employee, followed by an emotionally slurred compliment. He was always a lightweight, but this just meant there was more freedom until the morning after. Felix walked across the booth area with the triple sec in one hand and two red solo cups hanging from the fingers of the other hand. One of the cups had the name Harlow written with black Sharpie. She was alone at a booth tightening one of the sections of her long leather boots. Harlow lifted her leg carelessly in the air as she noticed Felix approach aimlessly towards her. "Ah, there you are, Fixer. Where were you 5 minutes ago?" "I didn't. This place got packed. It must be 10 degrees hotter, too." "Shit." Felix kept guiding his busy hands towards Harlow, but she paid little mind to his silent offer. "Take a seat while I finish fixing my mess of an outfit. I should have worn it under the uniform like the rest of these geniuses." "I'll pour you some. I know you like it with orange juice, but I only found cranberry." "Oh, shit, yeah. Now we're in the money. Pour it straight." Felix opened up the bottle with a large, stupid grin and looked at Harlow's glowing figure. She mesmerized him. He was speechless and almost poured a whole shot's worth outside of her cup. "Save some for me, too. It was a long shift." "Shit. Sorry the lights being off doesn't help." As soon as Felix finished pouring her cup, Harlow snatched it away from him and then grabbed his hand, leading them to the dance floor. Felix started swaying back and forth with the bottle and empty cup in his grasp. The crowd grew larger and louder, egging the two on. Felix took the bottle and spun it on one finger with a risky back toss, followed by a near-doom-filled catch. Paul, the manager, clapped wildly. "That's how you get promoted. Hell yeah, chaps. Way to spin. I'm on fire. This is the way. It's time to reel her in." The song ended and the attendees were ecstatic. Harlow bowed and incited a round of shots for the staff and ripped off guests. When she turned back, Felix surprised Harlow with an inspiring kiss on the lips. The crowd, stunned, were quietly muttering with confused looks on their red faces. One sudden cheer emerged from Iggy, and the party regained consciousness. Harlow took a step back, winked at Felix, and continued with the immaculate kiss while the partygoers danced drunkenly without a care besides the two. Someone had triggered the fire alarm from the locker area, and the sprinklers rained on the dancers. Something told Felix that the rest of the night was going to end lovely.